Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you to today's panel on people development, leadership skills, and training, a topic that sits at the heart of every successful organization. In an age of rapid transformation, from technology disruption to changing workplace expectations, one thing remains constant. That's our people, as organization's greatest asset. Developing their potential is not just an HR initiative, but it's a strategic priority in the current environment. Today, we'll explore how visionary leadership, continuous skill building, and inclusive training practices shape teams that thrive amid change. Our discussion will look how companies can nurture leadership at every level, how emerging skills are reshaping roles, and what it takes to future-proof our workforce in a world defined by learning agility. We are honored to have with us a panel of experienced leaders and practitioners who bring deep insight from across industries. They will share real-world experiences, lessons learned, and practical strategies for building cultures that invest in people. Not just for today's challenges, but for tomorrow's opportunities as well. So with that, let's dive in and start the engaging conversation about shaping the leaders, teams, and skills that will define the future of work. Let me welcome our first speaker, Mr. Praveen Anaswara. He's the Chief Manager, Employee Relations at Bharat Petroleum. He's with over 13 years of experience, and he has led transformative initiative across employee relations and HR business partnering. I invite Praveen on stage.
Good evening, everyone. So I was just looking for a good quote to start with, just searching our Google. Since my presentation is on the title, Run It Like You Own It. So basically it's about creating a CEO-like mindset or probably entrepreneurship inside the organization. So like Roy Ash said, he was the director of budget and management in US long back. He said that an entrepreneur tends to bite off a little more than he can chew, hoping that eventually he will learn quickly how to chew it. I found this interesting because we all have probably crossed or come across this path before, either in an organization or in our life. And this holds good for any government, any institution, or any individual as such, because today morning we have seen the Honorable Prime Minister of the country, Mr. Narendra Modi, talking about the mother of all agreements. And it doesn't just come out of nowhere. It needs that kind of a quality where we have to make the nation anti-fragile. It is not just about managing a many world which is brittle, anxious, incomprehensible, and difficult to understand. It's about how do we gain from that uncertainty, and that's all about being anti-fragile. And for an organization to be anti-fragile, it's very important that we develop every employee of the organization to a CEO-like mindset. So whether he's an office boy or whether he's a sales manager or whether he's an HR manager, it doesn't make much of a difference. It's about how the employee thinks about himself, his role in the organization, in his department, his role for the nation, as well as for the whole planet. So in BPCL, we generally go by the ethos of planet, people, and purpose. So the purpose or profit actually comes at the third part, and I think it's very, very important to have this idea. With this, let me introduce myself. I am Praveen. I am working as Employee Relations Head in Kochi Refinery. So I had the opportunity to work with two businesses of Bharat Petroleum also, which was industrial and commercial and gas. And this initiative was implemented when I worked for industrial and commercial. So industrial and commercial business unit of Bharat Petroleum deals with around 48 products in which we do B2B selling mostly. And we have around 70 plus area managers who look after the sales. They are our frontline managers. And you won't believe each of these area managers independently, they bring about 15 to 20 crores of profit to the organization. And our profits in INCBU was somewhere around 3,000 crores at that point of time. But for a period of 5-6 years, it was kind of stagnant. We never went beyond the bar of 3,000 or so. And that was when our business head, Mr. Rahul Tandon, he's currently the business head of gas. So he came up with an idea. He called me somewhere around 11 o'clock in the night. He told me, Praveen, being HR, it's not that you just do your job and go. You have to design a program to create a brute force. This was the word which he used probably at 11 o'clock. So I didn't quite understand because brute force is having a negative connotation. It's not a very famous word. So what he meant was our area managers had to deal with, in fact, a small vendor as well as the CEOs of companies. So how do they really switch their mind, like on and off? How do they be street smart at the same time be, strategic? And this is very important for any company as well. So with this, let's go ahead. A small introduction. In INC business, we have a turnover of around 1.2 lakh crores. And this I already explained. They bring in a profit of 15 to 20 crore EBIT every year. But what was happening was the area managers were focused on volume selling. They were actually giving discounts and getting the sales. What we thought was if we make these area managers think as CEOs of their own territory or their own area, what would be the difference? And this was what we were discussing about. So the mindset shift was from an order taker to a business owner, from volume to value, and from a sales manager to an entrepreneurial leader. So the basic shift was from volume to value. So we planned this training intervention. We cannot call it as a training. It's a learning intervention in collaboration with our own internal learning department, which is known as BPLC, Bharat Petroleum Learning Center, and the Premier Institute, ISB. You won't believe it took almost 3 months for designing this program because our business head was never happy with whatever we gave him because he had this idea in mind that it should not be just like any other training program. So the 3 pillars of training which we designed was decoding B2B markets, which included customer segmentation and buying behavior, build commercial acumen, price intelligence, what are the margin levers, and how to apply a discount and when to apply it. And translate these into revenue, which is value-based selling, negotiation and ROI storytelling to the customers. And what made the training interesting was we took case studies from Bharat Petroleum itself, where we had focused on value than volume. So we had around 30 odd areas where people were focusing on value than volume. So we took those case studies and we had people who were already a part of that learning and they shared it with the group when the training happened. There were 3 performance archetypes which we brought in for measuring the impact of the training program. This was value maximizers, margin barriers, and growth consolidators. So I'm specifically picking on margin barriers because what happened is after the training program, we kind of measured the results after 6 months. And what it showed was the area managers, they started exiting low value customers, not to offend them, but this was a strategic shift which happened. They pruned vulnerable segments and obviously started positioning themselves strategically in the markets, which brought more value than volume. And as a result, there was a drop of 4% in volume, but the margins went up by almost 6.7%, resulting in a gain of 29 crores in 6 months. So what this tells us is like the price wars were resisted. So every area manager was having a kind of discount in his hand which he could use. He stopped or kind of limited using that discounts and started going with value. So the bigger story is sales managers, they started behaving like territory CEOs. Instead of product selling, they really went into the customer's problems and priced the product with respect to the problem of the customer rather than just pricing the product. And instead of reactive competition, they started focusing on strategic foresights. And this works because the mindset change precedes performance change. It's not the other way. And the numbers follow judgment and not enforcement. So different strategies, one mindset, leaders making conscious trade-offs like business owners. The future potential is immense. This presentation, we thought we will share it with IEW audience because we would be happy to help. It is not just for BPCL, for any other company this can be done. And there is no need to reinvent the wheel. So now it's an era of open innovation, like companies share what they do with each other. It's not that we compete with each other anymore. We collaborate, whatever best practices are there, we share it with one another. That's how we grow. And that was what was discussed in the morning in the inauguration of IEW also. It's an era of collaboration. Like whenever you speak about energy, it's not about how much energy you produce. It's about where are the different places from which you can source the energy. The same applies to HR also. HR cannot stand alone in the process. So we will be happy to help. You can contact me at any point of time to discuss about what was the design of the program and how we really went about it. And let me tell you, the most difficult part of this was convincing the business as such and the investment part of it. The program costed somewhere around 1 crore, like for 2 batches, 50 lakhs each. So how do we really go ahead to our learning department and say that this will work? So that was the most difficult part. And getting the right faculty from ISB. We have a lot of faculties, but we were really choosy about the faculty. And for the 3 different pillars which we discussed before, we had 3 eminent faculties, and there were multiple iterations with the faculties which happened. So one faculty was Mr. Prakash Bagri. He dealt with B2B segments. The second faculty was Manish Gangwar, who dealt with pricing, how to bundle prices and deal with that part. And the third was Mr. Professor Jindal from ISB, who dealt with value creation and ROI storytelling. So ROI storytelling is something which happens when we tell stories to the customer, which will be, instead of just telling them that this is what you get, how to really make them feel that, okay, this is going to work and what you are telling really makes sense. The future potential is it can be scaled across BUs as well as the organizations. Doesn't mean it has to be limited to oil marketing companies. It can be any company for that matter. This can be embedded into the PMS and the leadership expectations as well. And obviously making ownership thinking a BPCA leadership signature. This is very important. So we generally tell even the trainees and apprentices who come to our organization that whenever they are doing a job, even if it is an Excel job, it actually contributes to organization building and nation building. It's how you make them realize this thing and connect the dots. The role of an individual in that particular workstation to the department, and how does it really affect the nation and the planet. So how do you connect the dots is one thing which we focused in this particular training. Yeah, I think I have saved 3 minutes for the panel, which can be used during the question answer session. I hope you will be having a couple of questions at the end of the session. Thanks to everyone. And it was a great opportunity presenting here, and thanks to IEW and BPCL for giving this opportunity. Once again, thanks a lot. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you.
Thank you, Praveen. That is very interesting case study you have presented. And our next speaker is Ankesh Nagar. He is a strategy principal from Accenture Solutions. He has been with Accenture over 12 years in experience in energy sector, focusing on oil and gas, digital transformation and sustainability. I hand over the stage to Ankesh.
And very good evening, everyone. I'll straight away dive into it, right? I think the last talk was about own it like you run it. Essentially, we all understand the potential of AI and the value that it can create. But to really run it, you just don't need headcounts. You need headcounts with the right set of skills. So what I'm going to talk about today is that if an organization wants to own it with the right kind of people, with the right kind of skills, what's the quick approach to find and map the right talent within your organization and set up that task force or that team to really drive and own this agenda to the T for the organization. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I would love your attention throughout. This is going to be a quick and valuable journey for you all. So I'm not going to get you lost in the numbers that you see, but we all know that the world is changing. And the potential growth, impact from a customer satisfaction or the growth potential of a firm, it's very evident that those who will not adopt AI will be left behind. And there is a glaring gap between the talent which is needed to drive it and what we have today. The number which I want you to focus right now on this slide is the one right at the top right, which is the transformation delay. So essentially, if you don't have the right skills within your organization, you are going to outsource it. So you're going to get into a whole procurement cycle, find the right partner, ask them to design, develop, and execute something which hopefully is of the right output that you're looking at, and then you move to the next journey. That's a 15 to 18-month process. What if you could do this all on your own, just by finding the right people who are there and getting them to work together? And that's what a true talent mapping is all about. And this is very well reflected in most of the surveys that are out there. This is an Accenture survey across 900 firms done about a couple of years back, across from different industries. And what is written on the wall is that when it comes to oil and gas firms, we are not as digitally mature as organizations or industries in life sciences, in aerospace, the ones which are really cutting edge. While oil and gas itself fairly is cutting edge, the true talent which is hungry to adopt the AI and digital skills is lagging still behind. And that's reflecting in the different capability clusters where oil and gas, whether upstream or downstream, are. So we have the appetite, we have the intent. It's all about investing it in the right manner and structuring our thought process and getting the right people together to really drive and own this. So I'm going to talk about how this can be done through an actual case that we did for an oil and gas PSU in India. And very proudly, I can say that they are reaping the benefits out of it as we speak. Here, the organization context is an upstream organization, which was essentially there in terms of starting their journey, but they were stuck in the journey of pilots, and they were really looking at scaling this. And to truly scale for any organization, you can't just outsource the thinking, the core capability of developing. You need your own horsepower. And therefore, they were looking at creating their brains for change within the organization with the right kind of digital talent. So that's the objective that they were working with. And in order to cut through the noise, because at the end of the day, this is an organization with good 20,000 plus people, we had to cherry pick and start somewhere. So we started with the key departments, which are their top picks based on the performance in the last 5 years, at a starting point of 300 odd employees. But that was our starting set. And we wanted to make sure that there are young and mid-management people who are hungry to prove themselves, who have the right skills, who are flexible enough. And that's how we got the first filter in. It was very important to quickly figure out if we have to create a team, in which domain they need to focus on. And in all honesty, when it comes to sectors like upstream or downstream, it's the core refining process or the core drilling production process where the money, where the dollar lies, where the true value lies. And hence, our immediate attention was to first create the structure of the team, focusing on 6 core domains, starting from asset maintenance, reservoir management, the 6 that you see on the right-hand side. But at the same point, it was important to support them horizontally with the right capability. So if there are, and I'm sure in every organization, you will always find those hands which are seasoned, who love to code, who love to think like coders, but they're lost in terms of truly harnessing their capacity. So we wanted to make sure that there is a horizontal team which is supporting these 6 domain-led areas to really unleash that skilling from a programming and some cross-functional, very niche areas like fire engineering, which is not found in every domain, so to say, right? So that's how we structured the 6 areas supported by the 2 horizontals. Now, from a journey standpoint, this entire journey of the right teaming with the right skill set is broken into 4 key steps. The very first is finding the right domain, which I just showed you, the 6, but also finding how many number of people do we really need to get this done. You do not want to overcapacitate unnecessarily. So that's the first step. The second step is finding the right set of skills. What is my ideal skill set of a person that I want to check for who will be able to drive and own this as a program over the years? So what's that ideal skill set? And then through a survey, which is scientifically designed, a proprietary tool which Accenture brings in, which is called skills.ai. It's a patented tool that we deployed, which essentially helps you run the survey, get the answers, run the AI algorithm at the back to give you the right kind of skill fitment scores to find the true talent which should go in each bucket. And then finally create the right team with the right team leads and each roles and definitions to really get this organization into work. So let me start with the first step. So we sat down with the leadership of each of the key work streams. Like I said, the 6, asset management, asset development, which looks the entire well life cycle. Renewables was an important area for the organization, so we carved it out separately. There was surface facilities, logistics, as well as reservoir management. So for each of them, depending on the kind of use cases that they wanted to implement, we realized and carved out and aligned that how many people of what capability are really required to house as part of the core team, and how many people essentially are required to support them through the horizontal capability of programming, so on and so forth. So first, we arrived at the right fitment. How many people do we need across the overall structure? The second step was to arrive at the ideal role profile. So for the ideal digital champion whom we want to be part of the structure, we're looking at 4 set of key skills, right? We're looking for right kind of digital skills, who understands the entire stack in a digital solution. Second is core programming skills. If there are someone who's really high on that could be somebody who can be part of the horizontal skill group. Project management skills, at the end of the day, it's about getting the job done. And very importantly, for a successful team, the right behavioral set of skills, right? And this is where we used our skill bank, which is again a proprietary skill bank that we have built over the years to understand which is the most relevant skill on high demand, which is most trending, and then add the nuance of the client. And then finally, we arrived at some 33 key skills across the 4 buckets, and some 80-odd questions that we ran across as a survey against all these people, and waited for their response to come in. Essentially, we had about 250-odd responses against 300. We put all those responses under a skill assessment survey framework, which is essentially on 4 lines. I'm not going to get into each of them, but the part that I want to stress upon is the skills.ai capability that it brings. It essentially brings, based on every response that's been part of the survey, it scans through each of the response, uses the keywords, and puts it into a skill map or a skill ontology framework, where, for example, if someone has talked about, I have experience in Java, while someone else is talking about Python, at the end of the day, our framework has the logic to connect that all of these different types are programming languages at the end of it, right? Similarly, if it's domain knowledge, it can correlate that, let's say, production engineering to reservoir engineering and experiences that is ultimately a technical domain knowledge that the user possesses. Using the framework, which was essentially the outcome of the survey, we looked at then matching each of the employee with the required skill set, use the skill ontology to finally arrive at what was the potential gap between what is ideally needed for the profile versus what the survey gave in terms of a score. And that gap becomes an asset for the company, for the organization, not just for this exercise, but for eternity, which one can use to ultimately keep refreshing. Because that's the employee's fitment score of how fit is the employee with respect to that skill for a particular domain. So for every employee, every 300 employee, what we had was a spider chart of, for each skill, if there is a 5 for an ideal, where are they today? And therefore, what's the gap? Now, just imagine for a second that you have this with you as a starting point, and you can do a similar survey with a different intent and keep churning this, updating this to keep realizing where is the maximum gap and do very targeted trainings in those areas to reduce those gaps and really enrich the skill and the talent that you have across the organization. That's how powerful this can be. So once this was available, we essentially just looking at an example of, for the logistics team, for example, how did we use this? So what you see on the black circle on the top right is essentially the fitment scores for each of the individuals with their employee numbers, levels, locations, and their top priority. Likewise for a team leader. So we use certain criteria like age, location, experience to distinguish between the team leads and the others, but ultimately reached the right kind of teaming structure. And as a result, we were finally able to align about 60 core people. So the top 49 that you see right up there, that's the core team across the 6 areas. They have some optional FTs in case you need to fill in. But most importantly, the 11, which is the programming group, helps you support and deploy your own solutions where need be, rather than going to the market. What this has done and why every organization needs to own its own digital mojo is very critical. Today, for this particular operator in context, they are able to have clear ownership for each of the 6 verticals. They are in fact driving some of the solutions on their own, the low-hanging fruits, the ones which are codable enough, but don't have to wait for an entire life cycle of procurement to award to a developer coming in and solving it for you. They essentially are doing that and doing that successfully, and therefore shrinking that transformation delay considerably by owning it and truly running it. And lastly, I want to end with the fact that for the industry, this example whilst particularly is for digital, but you could actually use this for, say, new energy. If you want to really harness talent in new energy space, you could do a very similar exercise and find the right kind of people who have the right initial skill sets to drive the renewable segments within the industry, within the organization, and then build further, let's say, to close gap in green hydrogen or solar or any of the others. And at the end of the day, this is therefore a replicable model, something that becomes an asset for the company going forward with the capability of constantly refreshing and finding where the gap is and doing targeted trainings and building the right kind of organization talent again and again for excellence. That's where I'll stop. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ankesh. It's a very interesting way of mapping the talents using AI. Thank you for showcasing that study. Our next speaker is Ajit Prasad Sinha. He's a senior manager from Indian Oil Corporation. He's a chemical engineer with 18 years of experience in supply chain, crude oil evaluation, production planning, margin improvement, economic study, etc. Wide variety of experience. Please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks to IEW for providing me opportunity. Let me share one of the world's most complex supply chain transformation journey of the Indian Oil. Indian Oil uses more than 63,000 touch points considering the more than 40,000 retail outlet, more than 15,000 LPG, the distribution center, and more than 20,000 kilometer pipelines. Transforming supply chain management from end to end, such a big global giant, is one of the complex tasks. I'll share my internal journey on this context. Internal uses the detailed refinery planning of the 9 refineries and 1 naphtha cracker. And along with this refinery production planning, it uses the distribution planning of the entire big global network. And for this, we have used transformed after 15 years, switched from the Honeywell traditional RPMS technology to the Aviva technology as per end-to-end supply chain production planning. The earlier planning was in silos. We were doing the crude procurement as a separate basket, doing the monthly production planning and the separate kitty, and doing the distribution, primary distribution as different software, and secondary distribution quarterly basis with the different tools. These were the loosely connected, not in the unified platforms. So we were having the leakage of the margins and leaking of the opportunities. Distribution was happening earlier on the cost of production basis. Earlier we were optimizing the refinery, then we are doing the distribution planning. So based on the RTP. Now in the unified platform, the distribution comes at the cost of productions. Something like suppose we are having the one refinery, Delhi location at the Mathura refinery and Panipat refinery. It is maybe the logistic wise, the Mathura refinery product is cheaper at Panipat and supplying at Delhi, but cost of production of Mathura refinery is higher because we are having a big complexity at Panipat, big value upgradation of coker and other units at the Panipat. So this was not visible in the earlier tool. So in the integrated production planning, when we have the production distribution in one silos, one kitty, it gives the holistic pictures. Such large project was executed in making the different teams. More than 200 persons were involved in this. From the consultant side, more than 50 people were involved, and from refinery sides, each refinery more than 25 people was fully involved, and partially unit level people were involved. We have used the Spiral software as a base platform, supply chain integration for automation of the data flow from the SAP and other sources. Integration was done because it's the AI tool area. We cannot do the manually update. Everybody wants in single click data should flow in automated way. Similarly, maintaining such a big infrastructure, big supply chain planning in the limited time frame needs a huge infrastructure. Like we are using the present today, the 1,000 core calculation hub. That is a calculation engine who done the more than 12,000 cases in the less than 2 hours. In the AI tool, our previous speaker has emphasized that in AI ML is the need of the hour. So we have applied a new tool, the AI analytics for the refineries, data vector generation and other use. Finally, we need the ClickSense dashboards for the management, how project is going on, how process is going on. This is the detail, since it was big project, so different teams were deployed to have the focus area. The one cluster of the refinery was done, the 4 refinery in one cluster, other 4 refinery second cluster. So the team should be focused and guided by the single standardization. So there should not be any deviation. We have initially built the refinery models in detail from the grassroots level by visiting the refinery. Then we have collaborated in the integrated tool at the corporate level. And finally, we deployed the data flow at the corporate level. This was planning done at the corporate level. And finally, this needs the people's re-skilling. Talent re-skilling is equally required because technology change is very easy task to invest the hundreds of crores, but people's mindset needs to be retrained because they have to re-skill for the new technology. So mandatory trainings and regular training are given for this job. These are the milestones. We have first analyzed the data of last 3 years refinery performance. We have gone in each in detail. What we have not covered in the earlier tool, we have gone further detail and then once that design philosophy was analyzed and design was finalized, finally build phase was initiated with the due presence of the stakeholders. The secondary distribution model like the CRU, FCC, the AIML application was applied. For that, we have done the more than 3,000 days of data points. We have trained 80% data set used as the training and calibrating the models. Rest 20% data was tested whether the model is predicting the right delta vector or not. So this AIML portion was done for mostly the FCC, hydrocracker, DCU. Such a big project needs the standard governance structure. Weekly governance was structure was done along with the vendors, monthly at the executive director level, and the steering committee means any critical issue comes, it's a director was directly associated as board member to give the guidance. Any deviation occurred or any delays occurred, it has to be expedited. Digital technology involved in such a big transformation. Integrated supply chain tool was, is of Aviva, and we need the integrated crude assay. Earlier we are having the crude assay separate tool. We have to cut it in Excel, then embed it with the planning tool. It has automated embedded tool. Just single click, you have to drop down the assay library. System will automatically cut, embed in the entire refinery structure. You need not to go update the assays. And it is highly dynamic. The assay engine is directly inbuilt and connected to the database. And visualization platform is for each and everything. Data integration is very smooth. Earlier we were taking more than 3 days to input the data for integrated planning. Now it is single click, less than 2 hours. We are able to push the data for entire month. And automated workflow, the governance structure, the person who has to trigger the work when and which date input has to be provided by the stakeholders. This is the just visualization of the scale of the projects. We have the 9 refining, more than 80.75 MMTPA, one naphtha cracker, and we are having the more than 20,000 kilometer pipelines, more than 63,000 touch points, more than 350 plus the primary depots. This is one of the world's largest supply chain scales, having the 5 lakh variables and 4 lakh constants. So model is solving such a large complex linear equations in the few minutes. We are able to provide end-to-end visibility and scale of the solution of this. The major component of the refinery backcasting, project evaluation for the future investment plan, term crude evaluation and spot crude evaluation, solution for the current economics, and ICM monthly planning are the major components which are in operations after the project executions in 2024. During this journey, because IOCL has a unique complexity, means production planning and marketing distribution. So the tool itself was not up to the mark, although we have selected, but such customized tool is not available for IOCL. So vendor has evolved their tool with the different feature request. They have developed their product during this implementation journey. So many features were not available. So this is just transformation of those that the Aviva company has developed so many features to accommodate the IOCL supply chain complexities. Then they are able to meet the requirements. The new planning tool providing the management the KPI dashboards, the everyday margin is you can able to see and visualize it. Performance monitoring is done the weekly and monthly basis, and this is the AI/ML application tool in our supply chain management. Like the first bar chart indicates the how AI model predicts and what is versus the actual. And at the bottom, we are seeing the FCC model Mathura refinery, which indicates the heavy naphtha output is governed by which are the major feature parameters governing, like LCO flow, LCO draw limit, temperature of the bed, etc. Finally comes the be invested, what are the major benefits. The fuel loss prediction got highly accurate. Earlier it was not available in the earlier tool, because it has been non-linear equations and we are able to predict the fuel loss during the shutdown scenario also. That was the major challenge in the earlier tool. Multi-period planning, like during shutdown month, how much inventory I have to optimize. We can run the multi-period sequential simultaneous optimization. We can give the target, these are the 15 days shutdown. We can run the multi-period models. Model will optimize and govern and guide us. This much inventory you can build up and deplete during the second phase, and this way you can optimize the refinery throughputs. That visibility was not available in the earlier tool, and integrated production planning and distribution. Now we don't have the separate distribution model. Whatever you are doing in the planning, it same goes for as a distribution for the execution, because we are doing now distribution on the cost of production basis. That visibility gives more than 100 crore profits in our organization. That is underestimation. And naphtha cracker integration gives you molecule-wise prediction, like which crude contains the isoparaffin content higher. That get assessed in the crude evaluation ranking. So crude evaluation process got much realistic now. The petrochemical component wise crude feature helps us to give insights that this crude is beneficial for the petrochemical plant also. So those comes in the top in the ranking now. These are the major disruption happen. Earlier we are doing the refinery planning, then distribution planning, then secondary planning. Now in new workflow, we are doing the unified platform, the refinery, crude evaluation and distribution planning done in the same sets, same model, and this gives the single version of the truth across all planning activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ajit Prasad. Sharing is the story of the implementation of IPT in Indian Oil. Our next speaker is Mr. P Chainulu, who is the CEO of Incisive Data. Mr. Chainulu is a veteran of ONGC, working in many of the ONGC projects, including Hazira Gas Processing Complex and Mangalore Petrochemicals. Mr. Chainulu, please.
Thank you for the nice introduction. First of all, let me thank my management of IC Pro Solutions for giving me this opportunity, and next the India Energy Week for hosting me here. Thank you all. Walking into this India Energy Week is really, it feels like as if we are walking into a high energy zone actually, and where we should be capable of absorbing that energy. So it's energy emanating everywhere, including the lights and the noise, of course, here. Some bad parts of it and some good parts. Very brightly lit stalls, the ambitions of the clients much bigger than the stalls, and the hopes of sellers even bigger, trying to sell their products and services. So that's my first feeling about walking into this India Energy Week. So now coming to the topic, is AI-based document consistency check. So in my 40 years of experience in various oil and gas companies in PSUs, so I have handled a lot of projects, and all the projects suffered very silently due to some reasons, and one of the reasons is basically the data or the document, which thousands of documents typically are made in any large project, and as the projects take shape and go into the next stage, there will be some data which will be leaking, some data inconsistencies, some 10 will become 15, 15 will become 20, and that becomes a huge cost to the project in terms of the reworks which are done at site, and in terms of the man-hours which are spent on correcting it, and the huge cost in terms of even time also. The projects run very late. So this is what I'm trying to plug. We are trying to see an engine which helps basically the humans in finding out the inconsistencies in the documents and the data. So that's what I try to do in this. So this is the first slide change. So it was a tense moment, whether it is right side arrow or left side arrow. So this is the typical project life cycle. So as you see on the left side, in any big oil and gas project, after finalization and completion, it looks like that. There are quite a few stakeholders in this, owners at the top, the investors, and the PMC at the middle, who is managing the show, and the licensors themselves, giving the design basis, giving the PFDs, the major equipments, and a lot of documentation happens at this stage. And next stage is the feed document, where front-end engineering takes place, where the licensors documents are the basis, and then the next stage of documents undergo a lot of transformation here. And based on these feed documents, a lot of equipments are ordered, because nowadays everybody wants to really economize on time. So all these long lead items are ordered after the feed. They don't wait up to the EPC stage. And last, of course, is the EPC stage, where the real validation of all these documents and the final check of all these calculation takes place. That's another agency. So very ambitious schedules are drawn for the project, as I have shown in the right side bottom. So billions of dollars, basically each project is enormous planning and years of effort and thousands of documents. Okay, so this is the summary of each project. And the errors, why do they creep in and where do they creep in? Let us just see. So for example, a licensor, he gives revisions of stream data after each simulation exercise. And this stream data is supposed to be the basis for the equipment design process data sheets. So where the equipment process data remains at the old revision and the stream data gets revised. So this is because maybe some reason of no re-verification after this revision. Okay, this is a silly reason. The problem looks simple and plain, but it costs huge. Okay. Next is the EPC, the licensor data sheets. Okay, where there is another set of documentation that takes place. Heat exchanger duty in the data sheet which he has received is 18,000 kilowatt, and vendor data sheet, when it goes to the tender, it is 17,000 kilowatt. It is just a typical typographical error in procurement. Okay, just to say that it's very simple. Next is a nozzle size. Normally happens in any projects, either nozzle sizes or the nozzle orientations. So these two create a lot of trouble, where licensor data sheet is 24-inch, feed data sheet is 20-inch, and reactor is ordered because it is some Korean make or Japanese make, and that's about 36 months of manufacturing time. So the equipment is ordered, and it may be because of maybe small human error in preparing the data sheet, but once the equipment reaches at site, so it becomes a hell lot of a task to really correct it. Similarly for the pump, NPSH available. So when the tender goes, it's 7.5 meters. And pump vendor data sheet, the pump vendor has quoted his own model, which is readily available. So where the required NPSH is 8.2 meters. So it's another huge work for the pump, which really causes trouble. Now, how do we actually put an end to it? Okay, and what are the reasons? Okay, what are the root causes? If we analyze, there are different stakeholders. See, it's not a huge project is not managed by a single or one or two stakeholders. The stakeholders are many stakeholders. In fact, I have simplified in the first slide. So where the licensor is one, EPC is one, the licensor in maybe more than 5, up to 10 or even 15 for each unit. And the EPCs are much more than that. So the different stakeholders are there and disparate systems. Each stakeholder has his own system of preparing the documents, and everybody uses software nowadays. So his own software is different, and there is no interface layer between one stage of document when it goes to the next stage. How, whether entire data which has gone in is consistent or not, there is no interface layer except the human mind, except the project manager and his team, who really are struggling to keep pace with the kind of documents which are generated. So daily in 50s and 100s, the documents are made. So substantial reliance on human effort and intelligence. That's really the trouble, actually. That's really the root cause. So every project, of course, runs into red schedule. So that's what I have represented on the bottom. So now, if we have one software which really does this job of checking the documents and correcting or the pointing out whether there are any inconsistencies when the document moves from one stage to the other, it will really help. So that's what we try to build in this. It's a single reliable repository of project documents. It keeps track through the various stages, right from the licensors, feed, as well as into the EPC stage. And it really brings down the costly reworks, at least up to 20%. And of course, the document re-verification time, it really slashes by almost up to 80%. So enhanced digital integrity, of course, and it helps accelerate the project by at least up to 15%, and improved operational safety because we don't end up using the wrong equipment with the wrong data sheets. That's the biggest advantage, where the safety and integrity both are taken care. And streamlined stakeholder collaboration because there will be no blame game at each stage. So this is what we try to build. Now the concept is very simple. There is one reference document and there is one test document. So the reference document is basically like a design basis or a data sheet which is generated at one particular stage, and when it goes to the next stage, so that becomes the test document. So the reference document data is tested against the data in the test document, and inconsistencies are pointed out. So these documents can be of different formats, PDF, Word, Excel, even scanned also. That's what we try to build into this. So the scenarios which we have tested, which is the most common scenario, like design basis, licensor has envisaged something, but the data sheet goes into it points out a totally different kind of a equipment. So the design basis versus data sheet, where the system needs to understand basically the total English language of what the licensor has written. Next is design basis versus design basis, revisions of design basis, or the licensor's design basis versus owner's design basis. So that can be one scenario. And third scenario which we have tried is the data sheet versus data sheet. So one data sheet which is prepared at feed stage, whether the project data has really gone in without any errors into the EPC stage. That's the data stage, data sheet versus data sheet. So this is another scenario which we have tested. And this software, what are the components which we have done is basically the first one is the document ingestion. So it can be an OCR engine, it can be a simple PDF parser or even docx, okay, it understands. And one layer which recently came into the picture is that LLM layer, which we didn't have so far, that armory. So in place of LLM, only human brain was working. Now there is LLM to help. But that's not all actually. So there it doesn't stop. So we are not relying totally on LLM to find out the inconsistencies. Basically what we are trying, LLM is only for understanding the document, but for pointing out and to really check the document against the design rules. So we have a structured knowledge base built into this software. So parameter master, for each equipment, what are the parameters which are to be tested? So these are all the design rules which you have incorporated into the software. This is how the software works. And the output formats, of course, spec-wise match or mismatch. The design basis, clause-wise match or mismatch. So all these reports can be exported into the Excel, PDF, Word, and role-based access control, which we have given to the people. So that's basically about the software and this. So now I am done. So this is what all about the software and what it can do. So thank you all for having a patient hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chainulu. It was very interesting to see because documentation error is very common in our life. So it's an interesting tool. Next, I would like to welcome Ms. Ritam Patel. She's an officer in Hindustan Petroleum Corporation, currently working in talent acquisition function. She has been actively involved in driving recruitment strategy, process improvement, and employee branding initiative at HPSCL. Stage is yours.
Thank you so much, sir. Respected session chair, distinguished co-speakers, and esteemed members of the audience, a very good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, so in downstream energy sector, we measure everything with a precision. We like precision, be it barrels per day or emissions per unit, refinery uptime, cost per ton, everything. Yet there is this one critical metric most of the organizations still struggle to clearly define. What about the capabilities will our future leaders and workforce need to operate successfully in the, say, coming 5 to 10 years of time? And this question matters because the industry is not just changing incrementally, as we saw in today's inaugural session as well, but it is also changing structurally. And so I'm Riddhim Patel, I'm from HPCL, and today I would like to share a piece of work on this topic, which is future-ready talent and leadership in energy operations. A work that attempts to bring a clarity to this capability question using evidence and not just intuition. So there are two very clear objectives here. First, to demonstrate a competency-based hiring and development, and it's not just a soft HR initiative, but a quantifiable business lever, one that directly impacts the cost, productivity, performance. And second is to establish a validated competency framework that enables downstream energy organization to bridge future skill gaps. Let me give you a brief context. As you can see on the screen, the downstream energy sector is operating under multiple and simultaneous pressures. There is 35% emissions reduction target by 2035, carbon taxation across 45 plus countries, then rapid digitalization optimization with over 40% already in refineries, and using advanced analytics and AI. What is important here is not any one single statistics, but it's the combination. Technology is changing, regulations are tightening, and decision cycles are shrinking. But the way we define role and assess and develop our leader is still largely anchored to the past experiences and operating models. And this creates a silent risk, a risk which is not actually visible on our balance sheets directly, but it is very much visible in the delayed decisions, in the leadership bottlenecks, and in the capability gaps. This is the gap which this research tried to explore. So now this was not approached as a conceptual exercise, but as shown here, the research followed a three-layered approach. We began with a primary research, that is internal diagnostic surveys and focus group discussions to understand where the capability gaps actually show in the day-to-day operations. And this was supplemented by a secondary research drawing from global frameworks by the IEA and World Economic Forum, Conferry. And finally, most critically, we validated the findings through a live case study at HPCL, analyzing the selection data. That is the data and the recruitment scores that the candidates get while they're going through the selection process, and their job performance outcomes. And we did this for 775 employees. So what you will see next is not a theory, but it is actually a tested insight. What emerged consistently across the data points was a clear pattern. 6 competencies repeatedly surfaced as a future critical, cutting across roles, across levels, across functions, and they fall into 3 domains as I would describe them. Under technical competencies, carbon literacy and digital fluency. Under behavioral competencies, resilience, leadership and collaboration. And under strategic competencies, system thinking and innovation mindset. What's important here to note is that the competencies did not appear in isolation, but they appear together as a capability system. So now, this is who we are. This study is grounded in a downstream organization that operates at a national scale. I'm sure most of you are here or already familiar about HPCL. The data reflects the organization as of the last completed financial year. And since then, under the new leadership, the organization has continued to grow very strongly. Even in the latest quarterly financials, the growth is immense. So this context matters because this framework is not developed in a vacuum or on a turnaround scenario, but it is validated in an organization that is performing, evolving, and preparing deliberately for what comes next, making them relevant beyond just this single organization, and it can be taken as a customizable framework. So as shown here, what we did was, there were 2, in primary evidence, we floated a survey and focus group discussions, 2 separate groups altogether. As you can see, there was assessor and there was a group of managers, that is line managers. And we gave them a set of, say, competency dictionary and we asked them, what do you think is the top 3 competency, most important competency for the organization? And what came out was very surprising because the top 8 out of top 10 was similar, exactly top 8 for both. So what it says is that the people who are directly or indirectly in line with the consequence of the performance thinks the same. But does this exist was the question. Then we moved on to doing the semantic analysis of the success pattern, of the success ratios, of the focusing on the top performers consistently, what they did consistently and what they did differently. And finally, with the internal findings, we mapped against the global research, and that gives us a very strong convergence. This alignment gave us a confidence that the framework was not only valid for HPCL, but it was relevant to the downstream energy operations more broadly. One of the most important insight from the study was that the organization don't fail because they don't know which competencies matter. They fail because they don't know how to apply them systematically. So this metric shows how the competencies are embedded across the entire talent life cycle, from hiring to assessment to learning, leadership development, and succession planning. This framework is intentionally customizable. For example, digital fluency may be emphasized at entry level and mid levels, while system thinking becomes more critical at the senior leadership levels. And this shifts the capability building, this framework shifts the capability building from isolated programs to an integrated talent architecture. This is the application metrics of the framework. As you can see, some of the hiring, learning, and performance leadership touch points. Say for carbon literacy at hiring, it can be case studies or a simulation or data development centers. We can go in digital fluency, we can go for AI ML simulations, tech-enabled assessments, and so on. So naturally, the next question was, does this actually deliver a business value? When we mapped those talent inefficiencies to per se across the value chains, the cost was significant. Annual mishire cost was coming to 41.44 million. Attrition cost was 174.05 million. L&D spend was 948.02 million. I'm talking in INR. And productivity loss from vacancies came out to be 52.21 million. And if we actually implement this framework, for one-time cost would be somewhere around 184.11 millions. That is in dollars 2.09 millions. And but now let's look at the gains. What would be the reduced mishire cost, reduced turnover, reduced time to productivity, and overall productivity gains if we implement such frameworks? And the gain would be somewhere around 390.31 million. And we actually try to draw the first year ROI of this. It is nearly 211.99%. And say there are a lot of assumptions, and yes, of course, the model had some assumptions, and we take the conservative or the pessimist scenario. Even then, we are getting 105.99% and 52.99%. Now, this is where actually it's very interesting that the narrative changes from talent as a cost, HR as a cost center, as they say it, to talent as a value multiplier, so that the business is aligned with HR. I'll just go directly to the conclusion. I would say the future of energy operations will not just be shaped by technology alone, but it will be shaped by how clearly the organizations are assessing, defining, and developing their talents through and through. And the capabilities which sit actually on the other side of the table, the capabilities that sit and make those decisions and leadership. This work attempts to bring a structure, evidence, and a very simplicity part to this challenge, and to show that if it is done well, it is not just future ready today, but it is also business positive today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhythm, for that insightful talk on bringing new type of competencies into bringing the new leadership in the 2030, post-2030 visions. Some of the elements are really thought-provoking. Thank you for that insight. Our next speaker is Anup Saraf. He is from Oil and Natural Gas Corporation. Anup has been worked in a number of projects in ONGC, and recently he has been he's one of the digital project leaders in ONGC and responsible for the IOPS project. He's leading from the client side of one of the largest pan-asset brownfield digital oil field project in the world, Ankleshwar Gas Balancing Project. Stage is yours, Mr. Rani.
Good evening, everyone. Respected chair of the session, Prabhakar ji, esteemed members of the audience, and all my co-speakers. Talking about my co-speakers, they have raised very pertinent issues today. They have talked about a lot of very macro level issues which are very fruitful for increasing the top line and bottom line of the companies, as well as the bigger level organizations, even government also. Talking about Mr. Praveen, he talked about how you can empower the ground level leaders to make them think like owners, and it gives you more top line and bottom line for the company. And Rhythm just recently talked about the skill framework which helped HPCL in a big way. Mr. Chainulu's, I can strongly relate to, sir, because I have been a project person, and how the mistakes in documentation can lead to a lot of project failures and it gives the lot less outcome from the project when what it is desired. I was quite amazed by Ajit Prasad Sinha's big integrated supply chain framework, because it showed that it can control up to 5 lakh variables in a single go, which is quite amazing in a big organization like IOCL. It must be a mammoth of a task, I must assume. And talking about Ankesh, I can fully vouch for your skill framework, Ankesh, because I know I am also one of the selected part of his framework, so I can fully vouch you selected the right people, Ankesh, through your framework. Now talking about the technology which I have gone, I am talking about a very micro level technology today. How in a plant, we are all aware that in an oil and gas plant, we need a lot of power, we need a lot of torque to move around things, we need a lot of power and torque to move about walls, we need a lot of power to move about panels, actuators. How we can remove an existing technology which have been used over generations like 50, 60, 70 years and move to a more pertinent and more advanced technology, and in turn save a lot of power, lot of manpower, as well as lot of it can lead to a more sustainable organizations in the long run. So the topic of the today is how we can transition from a traditional electro-pneumatic systems or using of air compressors in a plant to a fail-safe electro-hydraulic actuator, self-contained fail-safe electro-hydraulic actuators. So we all know that actuators are used all over the industry, all over the plant, in control valves, in shutdown valves, as well as air is used in, instrument air is used in all the panels. How we can transition in making the plant air free. And if we make the plant air free, all the people who have ever been posted in plant will know that we solve majority of their problem, because there's water ingression in the instrument air, there's dirt ingression in the instrument air, and the maintenance of the air compressor and its accessories in itself is a huge task. How we can apply all these automated valves to move to a more safer, more ATEX approved and more high reliability product which can make our lives easier. So currently what we are using is electro-pneumatic actuator, which maximum comes with a 1 year or a maximum 3-year warranty. But what I am suggesting is the use of a self-contained electro-hydraulic actuator which comes with a 10 to 25 years replaceable guarantee from the OEM. And how by using them, and I will show you the use cases, how by using them we save lot of money in the life cycle, cost assessment, as well as we reap the benefits of the carbon credit, which was all verified by a third party. The challenges with conventional air systems are that it is heavyweight infrastructure and it is especially challenging in our offshore environment where the marine spreads carries lot of cost. Infrastructure weight high infrastructure weight is directly proportional to the high marine spread, which cost a lot of cost to the company. Operational efficiency. It includes a 7% approximately air loss factor and high energy consumption. From 30 kilowatt motors running 30% of the year, even if we assume 7% air loss. Life cycle limitation, air compressors generally have a life cycle limitation of 7 to 9 years at max. 7 years is the claimed life cycle which they claim, the OEMs claim, and at maximum we can go up to 10 years if we maintain it well. Manpower dependency, it requires dedicated personnel for maintenance and operation, and he should be an engineer grade person who should be working throughout day and night to maintain that air compressor efficiency, its dryer efficiency, etc., etc. Case study, we did it in one of the plants of ONGC where there were 34 valves identified for the transition. We selected a plant, we looked for a plant where we can migrate from a complete electro-pneumatic system to a complete electro-hydraulic system. We did the case study. Control valves were 1.5 inch to 3 inch, the down valves were 2 inch to 6 inch, and there were high pressure valves also in the manifold which ranges from 2 inch to 3 inch, 600 units. And this is the verified figure done by a third party assessment, also by a peer review. And to sum it up in small, in the first system, there was a capex of around, the initial capex was less, not less in per se, but the compressor cost was around 2.95 CR. The automation which was separate was 1.7 CR and 0.25 CR. And when we replaced it with the complete electro-hydraulic system, it costed 3.74 CR. OPEX cost in the first case is 1.61 CR, only in terms of power. And if we see the electro-hydraulic system, to see the contrast, the OPEX cost is only 1.37 lakhs. That is the catch here. We reduce hugely in terms of OPEX. Manpower cost, if we see 1.12 CR, and the other side, the manpower cost is 0. So at a click of a call, your complete top automation assembly gets replaced within 24 hours. So this is the main advantage here. We have seen how it is difficult to hire and retain the right talent, and how it is difficult to build the capabilities. I am saying in this system, you don't have to build the capabilities. You have to do away with the engineers for this kind of work. Engineers are not made to open and clean the valves and maintain a compressor. They have to do the higher level analytics things and go forward for AI level and the higher digital literacy skill set. So total cost in the first case was 7.83 CR, and in the second case was 3.7537 CR. That's very small use case, very small plant, very small use case, which resulted in a total saving of 3.8763 CR. Energy reduction. Annual power consumption reduced from 96,000 units to just 48 kilowatt hour for a unit. Carbon saving 0.36 kg saving per unit ratified by a third party. So this is so if you calculate the total carbon credit for this small plant, this was approximately 243.6 carbon credit earned over 7 years just for this small valve replacement. If you see at the macro level, if you go for a macro level replacement at the organizational level, what kind of carbon credit it can earn for a company and how it can help us achieve the 35% emission target as promised by Modi ji as soon as possible. Reliability, it significantly improves plant uptime by removing the single point of failure, that is air compressor. It has very high level diagnostic capability and it is industry 4.0 ready. They have an inbuilt IIoT device built inside it with a SIM chip if you want, and it can talk distant. Like we have an example of Saudi Aramco where it is entire infrastructure of electro-hydraulic is placed in a single building. So it is talking to that building over IIoT. Alignment supports the Chairman Saab's agenda of operational excellence and net zero targets for a company like ONGC. high reliability, zero maintenance system that pays for itself through OPEX savings and carbon credits. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anup. We are on time, I think. I just want to thank you, all our esteemed panelists.